All right, welcome to our weekly session where I share some sales tips in our Sales Edge and business chat room. So I want to welcome everyone for watching right now or listening. And tonight's or today's session is a little bit quicker, okay? And just because it's quicker doesn't mean it's less important or crucial, right? So I'll start off this way, and I'll say, I read a couple of weeks ago, a lot of sales tips, and then I'm thinking, you know what, these things don't really work, right? And that led me to, this thought and conclusion that sales advice can be dangerous. So you have to be really careful when you get sales advice, when you read some books, because some of these books they maybe don't apply to your industry or maybe don't apply to your your maybe your country, or maybe it's so out of touch. It's like it's a lot of theory. I read a lot of theory, and I don't see how it works. I've been selling and marketing for 30 years, and in recent times, we have to do different things. And whatever it is, sales and revenue is the lifeblood of a business. So let's start with this. Sales advice can be dangerous, and you have to be really careful. There's so much of it everywhere these days, right? And throughout 30 years, 40, 50, 70 years, whatever it is, there's always been a ton of sales advice out there. It just spreads faster and easier, and it's easier to get those things now because of this wonderful thing called the internet, right? So you need to be really careful when you're listening to sales advice, because a large majority of sales advice is actually going to hurt you, is going to hurt your sales and not help you. So as I said, I read this. There's two simple tests that you can use to determine whether a any piece of sales advice or sales technique is good for you or not. So the test number one: what do you really think about it? All right, and over 25, 26 years ago, I was in the auto industry, and I read up on whatever books that I could to help me sell more cars. And one of the ones I came across was Joe Girard. Now, Joe Girard was a professional salesperson, professional automobile salesperson in the 70s, I believe, and he wrote books about selling and how he was able to become the number one professional automobile salesperson in the world. That's pretty impressive, right? So, in one of his books, I read, or he wrote about in his book. He talked about a technique that he said led to more referrals than anything else for him as a professional automobile salesperson. And what he would do is he would send a greeting card to every single one of his customers every single month, or for whatever holiday was in that month. And then in that card, he would write the words "I like you," right? And that I know it worked for Joe Girard, and it probably worked in the 70s, maybe the 80s as well. But let me ask you this question: what do you really think about this technique? All right, it's not so much the actual technique itself, but the mechanics of the technique, right? The "I like you," right? So, what would you really think about this technique, right? How would you feel if you got a card every single month from the guy that sold you your car, and in each one of those cards it said "I like you," right? Me, I'd probably be creeped out, and it would just be weird. And here's what I want to share. Okay, as human beings, we sometimes get signals from our gut because the people giving us advice are saying that advice with a lot of confidence, or they're saying it in a book that was published by a well-known publisher, or an article in a well-known magazine, Fortune 500, Inc. magazine, or more often than not nowadays, two things: they say it from a stage in front of a lot of people, or they say it in a Zoom or a webinar format, and also dispensing this advice to a lot of people. Now, Even if these things are happening, in the magazine or a book or the stage or a webinar presentation, having things in those format doesn't make the advice good. All right. So you got to think to yourself, what do you really think about it? All right. Is it working? Regardless of how the advice is being presented, no matter who is presenting it, no matter where it's being presented, unless it shows that it really really works. We don't want to do things that are really really out there, right? No matter how the advice is being presented, think about this. What do you really think about it, right? Now, the next test is, would successful people, and hopefully we know a lot of successful people, right? Would successful people agree with this piece of advice? And there's one piece of advice that's floating around, and it started with one person, and then a whole bunch of other people are starting to get on that bandwagon. Is the 10x, right? 10x your effort, and you'll 10x your results. All right. But this is just a fancy way. It's a shiny way. It's like the latest uh, trend. Okay, it's a new way of saying, dude, just work harder. Okay, it's like we've all heard that before, right? Okay, so let's put this to the test. Would successful people agree with this advice? Now, Michael Jordan, arguably one of the best basketball players in my lifetime, okay, maybe possibly ever. Michael Jordan, basketball player, this is what he said. You can practice shooting 8 hours a day. That's working hard, right? You can practice shooting 8 hours a day, but if your technique is wrong, if your technique is wrong, then all you become good at is very good at shooting the wrong way. So would Michael Jordan agree with the advice to just work harder? No, I'm sure he wouldn't. He would tell you it's not just the working hard, it's also to make sure that you're doing things the right way in the ways that actually work, and then work hard practicing those things. That's really the key. You have to find out what really really works. Don't work hard until you find what actually works, because otherwise you're just going to be spinning your wheels. You're running faster, you're running more crazy, um, but you're going nowhere. Think about what works for you. Try and proven techniques that work not just for one guy or gal, but works for many different professionals. Use these techniques and skills to get ahead, and then make sure they're right, and then practice it right. There's no use practicing it wrong, because practice wrong simply makes it wrong. All right. So let's take these two things, and put it in our head, in our heart, and then when we hear some advice, just because it sounds good from a stage, or is being told by a famous person, um, think about, is this really going to work? And just hard work, especially in our profession, the sales and marketing profession, it's not enough. We got to find out what works, right? We got to have the right technique, and then we got to learn it. We got to practice it, and we got to practice it right, and that is what's going to make you a little bit more successful. Get a little bit more sales, get more clients than you are right now. All right. So I want to thank you for listening in or watching in the Sales Edge and Business Chat Room, and we share these techniques every single week. And I look forward to seeing you on a future session. And I want to wish everyone to stay safe, and blessings for all of us. Thank you.